The tragic story of Fiona Anderson, a warning cry for mental health awareness. The tragic story of Fiona Anderson is one of heartbreak, mental illness, and a system that failed to intervene in time. In April 2013, the town of Lowestoft, Suffolk, was left reeling from an unimaginable crime that took the lives of 3 innocent children and their young mother. Fiona Anderson, a 23-year-old mother of 3, had been battling severe depression, relationship troubles, and an overwhelming sense of isolation. In her final moments, she carried her youngest son's teddy bear with her, a haunting symbol of the love she bore for her children and the profound desperation that led her to commit an act that would leave a permanent scar on her community. Fiona Anderson's life was one marked by instability and struggle. She had suffered from mental health issues for years, exacerbated by turbulent relationships and financial difficulties. Fiona, deeply in love with her partner Craig McLen, dreamed of building a family and a future with him. Together, they had 3 children, Lavina, Addie, and Kaiden. Fiona's devotion to them shone brightly to those around her, but beneath the surface, she was fighting an uphill battle against her inner demons. Fiona's battles with depression had defined much of her young adulthood. A combination of unresolved childhood trauma, romantic insecurity, and financial hardships left her vulnerable and isolated. Over time, her world seemed to shrink as her mental health struggles isolated her further from friends, family, and community resources. Poor mental health not only clouded her judgment, but also amplified minor stresses, making it harder for her to seek help effectively. Craig's decision to leave Fiona for another woman during the winter of 2013 was more than just a breakup. It unraveled what little emotional stability Fiona had left. For Fiona, whose self-worth had become deeply intertwined with the success of their relationship, Craig's departure was devastating. The breakup also left Fiona with the daunting reality of single motherhood. Caring for 3 small children on her own, without emotional or financial support, was overwhelming. Worse, her mental health steadily declined in the weeks leading up to April 15, 2013, as feelings of rejection, loneliness, and despair consumed her. Fiona reportedly pleaded with Craig to return, not just for the children's sake, but for her own mental survival. Alas, Craig refused, unaware of just how fragile Fiona's state of mind had become. Family and friends later expressed regret, acknowledging the telltale signs of her breakdown: erratic moods, tearful confessions, and increasing isolation, as warnings they had failed to act upon in time. However, it was also clear that systemic failures by social services allowed her mental health deterioration to go unchecked. On the night of April 15th, Fiona's relationship collapse came to a tragic crescendo. In the confines of their small, cluttered home, Fiona performed an unspeakable act. She reportedly kissed each of her children in turn, leaving behind messages of sorrow, regret, and love scrawled on the walls. In letters and writings left behind, she described her belief that she was sparing her children from a world of cruelty, believing, in her distorted state, that this was an act of protection. Still holding the small teddy bear that belonged to Kaiden, Fiona stepped into the night. Witnesses would later recall seeing her at the top of the car park, appearing lost in thought and occasionally murmuring to herself. Some reported the blankness in her expression, a woman whose pain seemed uncontainable. In a moment of numb determination, Fiona climbed the ledge and jumped. When emergency services arrived, it was too late to save Fiona. Tragically, it wasn't until authorities traced her identity back to her home that the full horror of the night was uncovered. Police entered the house to discover the bodies of Fiona's children, Lavina, Addie, and Kaiden. The state of the home reflected not only chaos but the distress Fiona had endured in the days leading up to the tragedy. Large, heart-wrenching messages marked the walls, written in red lipstick, declarations of love for her children, and apologies for an act Fiona believed was born out of compassion. As news of the tragedy broke, shockwaves rippled through the local community. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers mourned the loss of Fiona and her children. Yet, as the grief settled, anger and outrage took hold. How had a young mother's cries for help gone unanswered? Who was responsible for ensuring the safety of a family in crisis? The public reaction was understandably emotional, a mixture of sorrow, unanswered questions, and outrage. How could a mother, even one struggling with deep emotional pain, take such drastic measures? How had Fiona slipped through the cracks, unnoticed by the very system meant to support vulnerable families? Local inquiries revealed that Fiona's mental health struggles and well-being had been flagged on prior occasions. However, like so many overwhelmed social support systems, her case never received the decisive intervention that could have saved her and her children. For many, this exposed the dire realities of Britain's overburdened mental health and social services networks. Social workers, overworked and often tasked with heavy caseloads, occasionally made visits to Fiona, but lacked the resources to provide comprehensive help. Furthermore, her isolation and distrust of seeking external solutions likely made it challenging for services to fully understand her situation, another devastating consequence of untreated mental illness. Perhaps one of the most haunting questions is how Fiona could justify taking the lives of her children. What beliefs or justifications motivated her devastating actions that night? Mental health experts weigh heavily on the concept of altruistic filicide, a psychological state wherein a parent, overwhelmed by despair, believes they are protecting their children from a painful life by ending it prematurely. It's crucial to recognize Fiona's actions not as those of an evil person, but of a mother consumed by untreated trauma, depression, and delusions. To others, Fiona's actions highlight a larger societal failure. In modern communities where mental health continues to be underfunded, many like Fiona suffer silently under the weight of their struggles. Questions of blame are layered with nuance. Were Fiona's loved ones too late to intervene, or did a lack of structural assistance push her past the breaking point? Years after the tragedy, the Anderson-McLen case remains etched in the collective memory of Lowestoft. If you walk through the town center today, you might hear whispers of Fiona and her children's story, passed down as a tragic warning. For many, her tale represents what happens when cries for help go unmet. Mental health advocates often point to this story as evidence of the urgent need for robust interventions in cases involving young parents struggling with depression. Resources remain thin, and all too often, mothers like Fiona are left alone under circumstances that exacerbate their illnesses. Fiona's tragedy also prompts broader discussions about the stigma surrounding mental illness. How many opportunities might there have been to save Fiona through understanding and prompt care? Her reluctance to seek public help is reflective of the shame that many feel when admitting to difficulties in parenting or mental health. Addressing these stigmas could be as important as providing resources. The legacy of Fiona Anderson and her children underscores the importance of taking mental health, especially postnatal depression and parental struggles, seriously. Accessible counseling, open channels for familial crisis intervention, and active follow-ups by community professionals could potentially avert future tragedies. The haunting messages left behind in Fiona's home are a tragic reminder that she was not seeking to act out of cruelty or malice, but was swayed by her fractured reality. As mental health advocates often emphasize, society must not wait for tragedy to strike before offering support. Issues as profound as depression and isolation require prevention-based systems and stronger community bonds. The story of Fiona Anderson and her children is more than just a tale of despair. It is a chilling call to action. With proper intervention, counseling, and societal care, tragedies like this can be prevented. Fiona herself serves as a tragic reminder of what happens when cries for help are left unheard. Let her story echo as a lesson, urging us to build a world where mental health support is not an afterthought but a cornerstone of community care.